Welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast, a platform dedicated to celebrating inspirational stories of people from all walks of life overcoming life-changing experiences who found their way forward. I'm your host, Vernon West, and my co-host for today's episode is my daughter, Jackie West, who, along with being our social media and marketing manager, is also a professional musician and Reiki healer. And I want to especially thank you, our listeners, for joining us today and giving us your precious time and attention. We know just how valuable that is. And please remember to smash that like button and hit that subscribe button because everything helps to get the word out there. This week on Out of the Blue, the podcast, we're honored to welcome Ellen O'Brien. Born and raised in Revere, Massachusetts, and now based in New York City, Ellen is a gifted singer and a proud graduate of Berklee College of Music. She was living her dream, performing in nightclubs and building a thriving career until, out of the blue, life took an unexpected turn. Ellen's powerful journey of survival and recovery is both unforgettable and deeply inspiring. Today, she is a renowned vocal coach with students from around the globe. Her story is a testament to resilience, transformation, and the power of holding on, because sometimes the miracle is just around the corner. Hi, Ellen, and welcome to Out of the Blue, the podcast.
Hi, Vernon. Hi, Jackie. How are you today?
So good.
Yes, very good.
Grateful to be here.
So what's your, let's start it off with what brings you to Out of the Blue, other than you being an old dear friend of mine. But we're talking about the actual event that we started this whole journey.
So thank you so much for having me here. And I'm so grateful and honored to be here, actually. I've always worked in professions. I'm a singer. I've been singing in jazz clubs since I was 12 years old. And I've been around people, a lot of people at once when I'm singing. As I got older, most singers and actors, especially when you live in New York, have to work a side job. So I was always bartending or waitressing. So the bars I worked at, the hotels, restaurants, they were always uber busy. And the beauty of that is you keep seeing the same human behavior over and over again. And, out of the blue here with me is I could call everybody else's behavior and I could see what everybody else was doing, but I couldn't see myself. I couldn't see my own behaviors. Yeah, my whole life was always about getting all the externals. And this is a big thing, when I coach. And that's another thing. I never wanted to teach. I was always, nope, I'm just going to sing. I just want to sing. I want to perform. What am I even going to teach anybody? It was so natural for me to do what I did. And so I just thought I'd be a horrible teacher. So the fact that I actually coach during the day is funny, but I, at this point, could never imagine my life. So teaching was out of the blue. That's number one. I did not realize that for decades. Now, when I was younger, I wanted to be rich and famous. And that's all I knew. And I never really thought about it. I just wanted to be rich and famous. I give metaphors or visuals to my kids that they can, it's palpable for them. So I always say, we all have this little internal bowl, think of a little ramekin bowl, and it can only be filled with internals by us. And so there's 5 internals that I tell them: self-love, self-respect, self-esteem, self-care, and self-compassion. Now, how do I fill that bowl up? Because that's the next question they always ask me. And I say, all right, for instance, there's a boyfriend or there's a friend that I realize is toxic. I set a healthy boundary. It could be a family member even. I set a healthy boundary. Well, when I set a healthy boundary, I just put self-care into that internal bowl. And who follows self-care? Self-love, self-respect, and self-esteem. So I'm filling my bowl up. Instead of beating myself up when I make a mistake or do something wrong, the person I was before would get angry. I'm so stupid and just beat myself up. And I don't do that anymore. I have self-compassion. So there's my self-care, my self-compassion. Who follows self-compassion? Self-love, self-respect, self-esteem, and it's self-care. So every time I do these, whatever I think, whatever I say, whatever action I take or decision I make is either going to add those ingredients in my bowl or deplete it.
This sounds like where you have come. You are definitely, this is your place. And I think what to let our audience hear how you earned this spot, because you definitely didn't just wake up one
Oh
day.
no. What I realized is all these years I was trying to fill this internal bowl with externals. So this was the second half of it. So there's a trap door for externals. Again, I'm teaching, younger people. So I make it palpable so they can, I get
I
that.
get it, yeah.
So I always say there's a trap door for externals. So I tried to fill that bowl with men, money, clothes, alcohol, weed, sugar, everything. And guess what? I felt good for a while it was going through the bowl, but as soon as it went through the trap door, I needed more. I was walking around unconscious for many decades, not paying attention to what was going on here. But again, I don't beat myself up because one of my very good friends, this guy named Jay, he's from Rhode Island, he said to me one day, we live in a forward moving universe. And I was like, and he said, we can't go back to yesterday, whatever day it was Tuesday or something. He's like, it's Tuesday. We can't go back to Monday. And so I don't beat myself up for what I didn't know or what I didn't get. So moving forward, the out of the blue, the experience that I had that really changed a lot for me. And again, I've had a lot of out of the blue experiences over my lifetime, but the biggest thing was in 2015. So I chose to move home to Boston back in 2005 to help out with the family illness. And I stayed there for 8 years. I wasn't doing well. I was getting depressed. I started eating a lot of sugar, like just eating processed foods and sitting on the couch at night watching TV. And I just basically wanted to numb myself because that's the tool that I knew so well. Why was I doing this? And it's another out of the blue experience, which was, what I finally came to realize was I was in a lot of mental pain and I was in a lot of emotional pain. And I ask this of anyone, whether they have any addiction issues or they're a normal person. What do you do when you have a headache? You take something to numb the pain. I know, unfortunately, young people that have taken their lives because they just couldn't bear the mental or emotional pain they were in. And if somebody just talked to them and said, listen, this is what's going on. So I'm a big advocate of, I always, and I'm glad I'm saying this right now because I've said this to numerous people and I've never said it publicly, but I got so aggravated when people were arguing about what books kids should be reading in school, like Dr. Seuss shouldn't be allowed or whatever the hell they were saying. And I said, instead of you people arguing about what books these kids should be reading, why don't we teach them about the computer that's running this machine that navigates them through life and how to take care of it, what foods to eat to nourish it. A metaphor I give my kids once again, and I love this metaphor, I say to them, think of your brain, the organ itself, like the claw that picks up the stuffed animals at the arcade. And then your conscious thoughts or your senses are the lever that moves the claw. So the claw is only going to move in the direction the lever sends it to. So if I wake up every morning like I used to and have thoughts and they can be very fleeting. Sometimes I don't even realize. That's why I say I was walking unconsciously, walking around this earth unconsciously for so many decades. So I could have these fleeting thoughts of nobody's ever going to love me. I'm a piece of crap. I'm never going to amount to be anything. I used to have those thoughts.
Yep.
Well, that's where I moved the claw. That's the lever was going and I was moving the claw. And that became my reality. So
Until you made a choice. That's what I'm
I
hearing.
made a choice.
You made
Absolutely.
a choice. I think the thing that hits me about this kind of recovery you're talking about, I've personally experienced something like that myself, is that when you have that long, hard look at yourself you're doing a self audit in a way, and you're finding the things that push your buttons, and you learn about the triggers in your mind, and you try to alleviate them, maybe compensate for them or get rid of them through some understanding. But ultimately, after you go through all that, you're able to actually see the good things. You can't get to the good things until you do clean house, get at the stuff that you got to clean up. But when you do that, you start seeing the things that you are that are commendable, that are the things you appreciate seeing in others. You have them too. Now you it seems like that's what you're coming into now. You're coming into the wisdom that is really your right to have as a human being, and you found your way to it after getting through really having been brought to your knees
Yeah.
from the working of out of the character defects, I guess.
Right.
That would be what it is.
Absolutely. And not getting too much into it, but my out of the blue experience, I had two major things that happened that were really a big show. Well, three major things. The first thing was I did get into recovery. So I'll just say that right here. And I literally have no shame. I always joke about, you know, in what I do, we don't say our last names, but I always joke that the way I am now, I should be saying my last name, because when I was acting like an ass in a bar or, doing stupid crap like I used to do, I was like, hey, I'm Ellen O'Brien. I was like yelling my name everywhere. So what happened to me was the biggest out of the blue experience was when I moved home, the reason why I moved home was the front of my brain was saying, I'm going to move home and help out with this person's illness. The back of my head, and I didn't get this until later on, years later, was I still was looking for the externals. I physically was sober, but I wasn't I did not grow. I wasn't mentally sober or spiritually sober, so to speak.
Yep.
I did not grow up yet, and I was spiritually weak. And so at that, it was a 7-year mark. And I said, and I didn't say it was in the front of my brain, these are these fleeting unconscious, subconscious thoughts that you don't even realize are happening. I'm not rich and famous. I don't have the husband and child. God doesn't know what he's doing, so I'm going to take over and I'll pull a geographic. That's basically
Yep. So, taking over for God. I like that one. I think we've all done that.
I moved home. I quit my job. Within 3 weeks, I did this. And now I lived in New York for 10 years at that time. And everybody was like, what are you doing? And my sponsor even said to me, what are you doing? And I was just like, no, this is what God wants me to do. I know. And she actually said she had to stop sponsoring me. She's like, I can't watch this. Oh, and I moved home. I did get a sponsor up in Boston, but I still had, and I keep saying this recently, they only call it alcoholism because that was the major,
that was a major drug at the time.
That was the substance that everybody was using to numb this. But the actual disease itself, for me, is my thinking. And my thinking is mentally it's painful. It's very painful thinking. It's anxious thinking. It's negative thinking. It's fearful thinking. It's self-centered thinking.
Yep.
That's very painful thinking. But again, it's kind of like if somebody's gluten intolerant or lactose intolerant, and they don't know it. I mean, a lot of us are eating foods we shouldn't be eating right now, but you'll never know. And so this is how I realized this. I went to a doctor. His name's Dr. Frank Lipman. He's amazing. Yeah, a lot of people go to him from all over the world, actually, but he's based here in New York City. And he's a Western trained internist, but he is huge with Eastern medicine. And he's like, we get to the core of the issue. There's no like, take a pill, here's a Band-Aid. Again, I always want to say this to people. I am not a doctor, and there are people that do need medication. For me, though, that was not the case. Okay. So I always want to say that because we are not We are not doctors.
No, we
So,
don't dispense any medical advice. This is only our
absolutely,
personal
absolutely,
experiences.
absolutely. So I went to Dr. Littman, and this was back in 2000, and I just didn't feel good. I never broke out in my life, and I was breaking out, and he took me into his office. I'm like, what kind of doctor is this? There's no, examination room or anything. And he just said, give me your day of eating. How many cups of coffee do you drink? How many hours do you sleep at night? Do you wake up at night? And he's just asking me about my life and my daily living. And I was like, what the hell is that? Because this is back in the day when there was no Whole Foods, there was no green juices. I mean, there were, but people call people that did stuff like that crunchy granola people, hippies,
Right.
or so. He said, I'm going to put you on a 3-week cleanse. No dairy, no sugar, no wheat. And I did it. And my sister and my friend Jay to this day will say to me, that is the best you ever looked or felt. And so fast forward, I went back to him around 2016, 2015. And this time he took me off no processed foods, no sugar. So like bread made with, anything that was processed, and no dairy. So one day, it was about 3 weeks later, I was downtown in the village, and I was eating at this restaurant, and I ordered some pasta that had a cream base in it. I got a sick stomach and my ankle swelled up so fast. So why I'm saying this is a lot of us are walking around sick, but we don't realize it until it's taken out of our system. There was a woman that told me during COVID, she started drinking like a half a bottle to a bottle of wine every night. A lot of people did. And because there's nothing left to, nothing else to do. So people would drink wine and, or whatever. And this one woman said, I was drinking a half a bottle to a bottle of wine. And after 2 months, I realized I'm gaining weight. I feel sluggish. And so I just stopped. And I said, and there's the physical part of that disease of addiction is everyone has an on switch. Everybody can take a bite of a cookie, have a sip of wine, whatever. But an addict or an alcoholic doesn't have an off switch. So when people say to people, well, what about your willpower? Well, willpower is great, but if there's no off switch, willpower can't do anything if there's no off switch, right? So that's the physical part. So again, the mental part, again, that I wasn't aware of was I was in mental pain and emotional pain, and I didn't know better. So I was just grabbing at anything that would numb me. And it was sugar, and it was alcohol, and it was just trying to focus my brain on something that would make me feel okay and comfortable. Going back to the substances, for years I woke up with a headache. For years I woke up with so much mucus in my vocal cords and in my nose. I thought this was normal. I just thought this is I'm healthy. This is how it works.
Right.
And then when I stopped putting all substances, including sugar, in my body, I cleared up. I have like no phlegm. I have regular amount of mucus, but I have a clear voice. I don't wake up with a dehydrated brain because I drank so much alcohol and dehydrated myself. And I feel like somebody's putting a jackhammer on my head. I don't wake up like that anymore, but I would have never known that I had this illness or this sickness if I didn't take it out of my system for a while.
Well, it seems like to
sorry.
me, just so remember we're about out of the blue, that the out of the blue things that have happened, so you go from that point in time where you're managing the input of the physical, the stuff that you said has a trap door. And as you're managing that, you go through your life, you're managing the physical intake of things you think are going to make you promote happiness, make you feel better.
Correct.
But then as you start to wake up to the fact that this is the wrong way, this isn't happening, and you still keep trying because, that's what we do. That's our tendency as if you're an addict or an addicted person, even just some normal people like that. You just think you got to keep trying again. Maybe I'll get it right. But you don't get it right. But out of the blue, things are directing you. things are
Yeah.
telling you.
Oh,
And it's a
absolutely.
bit, what is it? That's what I'm saying. The mystery of it all is that from out of the blue, this benevolent influence on our life starts to manifest, and you made a choice to listen to it.
Yeah,
That's the thing that I think
absolutely.
is the takeaway that I think anyone listening should know this, that you can have these things that Ellen's talking about, but when you make a choice to say, there's a better way, there's people that found a way through this, find a way forward, then you follow those leadings. And
Yeah.
that's what, look at you. You would follow those leadings that would happen in 2015. And here we are 10 years later. Now,
Yeah.
you,
Well,
the,
what
the journey
before
getting there is
so
what's
yeah,
interesting.
exactly. And before 2015, what happened? So when I moved home to Boston, like I said, I still was going to meetings. I had a sponsor, but again, I didn't grow up emotionally and I wasn't spiritually fit, but I was physically sober. So that I always want to make a point of saying that because there's a lot of people that are physically sober.
Right.
But we keep forgetting that the symbol is a triangle because it's mental, spiritual, and physical. And
Yep.
so what I was doing was I was making unsober decisions, going out with people that I shouldn't have been going out with. My old behavior and mental thought process was still strong. What did I do? I had a herniated disc and they gave me muscle relaxers that now are classified as D. 10 years later, they classified it. But, I started taking these muscle relaxers. And then the next thing I know, I picked up a glass of wine, which probably saved my life because I stopped taking the muscle relaxers. But again, a rose is a rose by any name. A substance is a substance is a substance. It's like, what's your trigger? You'll never catch me overeating celery sticks. But if you put but if you put a thing of Hershey's Kisses in front of me, I'll cut your hand off if you go for one of them. So I just had to learn what my triggers were. So long story short, I'm making all these bad decisions and I am mentally and emotionally in pain and I pick up. But again, I'm not drinking as much, but I started eating. And the funny story is I was watching Top Chef and the hostess Padma Lasky. She's gorgeous. She's tall, she's thin, she's beautiful. And you see them trying the food and they're sitting and they have the glass of red wine. And I would sit there and I just said, and there was just one point that I felt like I was on a fence. Like I loved all the principles, I loved all the solutions, but I just didn't feel like I belonged there anymore. And then I'm watching people like her and when I'd be out singing, I would see, people with their boyfriend having a glass of wine. And I was like, I just want to be a normal person again and be able to be that person that sits with their boyfriend and has a glass of wine and a nice dinner or whatever. And so I did. But again, here's the mental insanity. I would go to Trader Joe's in Kenmore Square. I'd get their finest bottle of red wine. I'd buy a block of brie cheese, French bread, like a baguette. I thought that and here's the insanity, I used to eat Hershey's bars and Skittles and stuff like that. So I was like, no, if I spend money and I get like go to a fancy bakery and get like a piece of lemon meringue pie or, $20 bar of chocolate, that's much better for me. And so I was in Winthrop in my apartment watching TV. That's where I was living at the time. And I would just sit and, watch TV, drinking my red wine, eating all this stuff for like 2, 3 hours. Now, was I sitting there with 20 Big Macs like you see on TLC on some of those shows? No. Sometimes it was just throughout the day. Oh, I had eggs for breakfast, so it's 10:30. I'll have a croissant. Oh, it's 12, so I'll have like a salad with some salmon on it. You know what? I had a salad with some salmon, so I'm gonna have some chocolate. It's dinner time. So this again, I was negotiating and being my own pharmacist with food. And so pharmacist, FARM pharmacist. And
Pharmacist.
so
I have an observation. Even though the uncomfortability of like negotiating is there, what I've observed in my own experience with these kinds of things is that um, that's also like you inching your way out of it because you're starting to become conscious of choosing something, even
Mm,
if it is you
wow.
choosing, to do the same kind of space. Um, what did you call it? Like the to fill the space kind of in
The
an
internal bowl. Yeah.
the internal bowl with a trapdoor entity. You're becoming more practiced with how and who enters, you know?
That's
And
amazing,
like,
Jackie, that you
Yeah,
yeah,
know
like
that.
you're starting to
like
get some
inching your
experience.
way out, I think there is something to be said about it's so hard to come out of addiction, because it's all you're feeling really out of control.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot with inching your way out.
And Jackie, to your point, and go back to Vernon's point earlier, that's an out of the blue thing because what he said is there's like this force, this, you can't see it. They, what is quantum theory? It's the study of this energy that is not seen and you can't feel it, but it is there.
I just want one observation throughout this. When you started talking about the inner bowls, the first thing that popped in my mind was this old saying by a French philosopher, Pascal. And I'm going to summarize it, but it's a lot longer and a lot more wordy. He basically says, and I'm going to change inside everyone is a God-shaped void. And what he says is really, well, in this case, we're going to say inside everyone is a God-shaped bowl. And the only thing that can fill it is that spiritual things. Spiritual things fill it. Anything
Yeah.
else goes right out the bottom,
Yeah.
will not fill that void. So we have to, in our lives, find a way to fill that void with things that are spiritual, that are
Right.
infinite, that are
Yeah, absolutely.
great and
So
powerful.
absolutely. So to your point though about the electricity and the what you were saying, Vernon, is like there's something that was guiding. I just again was
Guiding
unconscious.
you into that place to
Right.
get the
And
right
I was
things.
unconscious to it. But if you think of electricity, and I always say this, people will say, well, there is no, I don't feel God, I don't,
Yeah.
but you don't feel electricity, but it's there. All you have to do is plug the light in
Oh
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
light goes on.
You're
I
talking
might
about
I
people
might
that
also add
Go
that
ahead.
we have an electrical charge as humans, creatures.
Everything in the universe is electric.
As
Everything in the
yes.
universe is energy.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can say the universe, God, higher power. You can also say you were living in your thoughts, and what actually informed you was your heart area, your body. Your body has wisdom and it's
Absolutely.
telling you, and if you can tune in, and often tuning into your body is a wordless place. It's
Yeah.
just your breath. And I mean, as singers, that's we care a lot about breath and how to encourage expression through it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I just see that um, a lot of the disconnect happens from a literal disconnect of brain and body.
Absolutely. Well, what's funny you're saying this is my body and getting to what happened to me is I'm sitting in this, on this couch eating every night and I didn't even see it happening, but I gained 130 pounds. I gained an entire person. I was somebody that used to run Central Park 6 miles every day. I taught fitness classes. I was eating so healthy. And next thing I know, I'm sitting on a couch eating and drinking myself 130 pounds heavier. Like I was never that heavy in my life. And I had that, as Vernon talked about before, that second moment of clarity. Not many people get that, and I'm one of the grateful ones that I got that because there is a funeral that could happen. I've been to many funerals that of people that didn't get it the second time. And so when I
when you
went
get
to
a
the
second
doctor,
chance, right? When you
yeah,
get a second chance, I mean,
absolutely.
what a
So
what an
when
unbelievable thing that is. It's so great.
so when when the doctor said to me, listen, this is how much you weigh and your blood sugar's this. And if you don't get a grip off yourself, you're going to be pre-diabetic and then there's no turning back. At that moment, I walked out of her office and I said, God, and before I moved home to Boston, I had a savings. I had a job where I had a 401k and health and medical. I had everything. And at this point, again, 8 years, what was it? 2005. So it was 2012. So 7 years later, I did not see how fast my life went down. I walked out the door and I went, God, I don't know how we're going to do this, but the happiest and healthiest I ever was when I was in New York, because this is where I got sober originally in 1996. And I said, I don't know how you're going to make this happen, but I need to go back to New York.
I like the way you say you don't know how you're going to make this happen, because that's how you got to be when you're talking to the higher power. You kind of have to say that. You kind of gotta admit you are
Yeah,
not the power.
yeah.
That's the power. So we just got to do the
So
right thing. And I think you're following that gut feeling, following that going to New York. I think that was following that impulse from out of the blue.
yeah, are you ready for the out of the blue? I think it was the very next week. It might have been 2 weeks later. I get a phone call from a musician who I used to work with. And he said, I'm getting married Labor Day weekend. I'm putting my dream band together and I want you as the lead singer. So he said, I'm going to pay you. And I drove down. It was Labor Day weekend, 2012. And I didn't go to any meetings. But when I was here, I was like, I need to come back. I went back to Winthrop. Within 3 weeks, I had and again, I'm not sober yet, so I'm not really thinking things through, but I went back home and I had an apartment sale and basically sold everything I owned, except my dog and my car. I showed up on October 1st, 2012, 130 pounds heavier than I used to be. No job, no credit. A friend let me sleep on a sleep sofa for a month and a half. He used to be in the program as well, and he wasn't. And the funny thing is, I started to see his behavior. And I went, oh my God, I need to go to a meeting. I don't know what it was about it, but it was like frenetic energy. And I was like, I need to get to a meeting. And I walked into a meeting where everyone knew me, where they thought I had 17 years. And I raised my hand and I said I had one day. And literally everybody had whiplash, because I was that girl that was the AA, I was the poster child, sponsored people. I had a sponsor. I chaired meetings. I was at I went to meetings 7 days a week. I was the last person you thought would go out. And again, I almost went out because I'm sitting and I'm not listening to the similarities. I'm comparing. And I'm
not identifying. Got to identify, right?
I was never arrested. I never had to go to rehab. See, I'm not that bad.
Right.
And I almost went out, and it was January 2013, and I had 2 months. And this beautiful woman got up and she shared, and she had 4 kids. And she said, I've been in and out of this program 7 different times, but it took me those many times to finally realize that sobriety wasn't about my drinking. It was about my thinking. And all of a sudden I went, I've probably heard it a million times, but at that moment,
time it sunk.
And I went, you mean I don't have to have a pissing contest with everybody of who was worse than who? Like, this doesn't think right. This always thinks anxiety-filled things. This always projects negativity. This is always thinking negative. This is always saying negative things. And so when I heard that changed. That was an out of the blue moment. And yep. And so I kept on my journey. But then here I was 7 years later, like the 7-year itch of marriage. It's the 7-year itch of recovery. And it was almost COVID. It was November. I was hardly going to meetings again. I started going to my doctors going, oh, I think I need Xanax, because I have a lot of anxiety, and, and I've done this many times before where I just don't do the work and I feel bad again. And now I'm looking for the easy way out. I'm looking for that Band-Aid again, that quick fix, that, that external and the internal bowl so I can feel better, get that inner peace that eluded me for all these years. And the best thing, and I know it was a sad time for a lot of people, and God bless, sending my prayers out to everybody that lost somebody during COVID, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because now I'm in this apartment, I have nowhere to go, and we have Zoom meetings. And I'm on a meeting one night, and there was a guy from LA who was in Bali at the time, and he was qualifying, and he said, I had 10 years. He was a famous DJ. He had the job. He had the money. He had the beautiful girlfriend. He had all the externals. And he said, and I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to kill myself. I was miserable. And he shared about it in a meeting. And some old timer walked up to him and said, I'm going to take you through the big book the way it was originally intended.
Just for those who don't know, the big book is the Alcoholics Anonymous book. It's the big blue book of the whole program.
And
The
basically all it is.
It's referred to as the big book, but go ahead.
Right. But all it is it's the blueprint. It's the manual of the first 100 people. That's what the big book is. It's the first 164 pages. They said, we finally figured out not only how to survive from this disease, but to thrive.
And
it's not just enough to.
What did they actually say? They said it's a spiritual cure. That's right. the way you can, the only solution to the alcohol addiction. And matter of fact, I think that would cover just about every kind of addiction.
It covers every human ailment. And let me just say because again,
the only healing of filling that bowl is the spiritual healing. Right. That's the only way.
So, but I just want to say this because I have a lot of friends that are Muslim and Jewish and Christian and Catholic and atheists and agnostic. So I'm going to say this because this is how I describe spirituality. Spirituality, is it found in religions? Absolutely. But is spirituality religion? No. What spirituality for me is it's how we navigate relationships and life situations. Do we come from a place of fear, ego, and false pride, or do we come from a place of love, integrity, and humility? So I always came from a place of fear, ego, and false pride in all my relationships and all life situations. I now work every day throughout my day, and getting back to that, what do you do? Throughout the day, I have interwoven everything that I've been taught into my entire day.
It's the fabric of your life.
It's the fabric of my life. So I literally walk around throughout the day, and at different points of the day, because again, I started studying how the brain works, and you have to exercise it. It's not a muscle, but you do have to exercise it like it is a muscle. And how do you exercise it? You give it an order. And so throughout the day, I will walk around and I just will say at random times, I come from a place of love and integrity. I come from a place of love and integrity. The more I say that, that becomes my reality. So the one thing about the brain that people don't, might not know is you have your conscious side and you have your subconscious side. So your brain is a computer. It's a binary computer. But how I describe this once again when I teach kids or whoever, what I say to them is, this is what you have to remember. You have your conscious side that you have to give an order to. If you don't give it an order, you've got a best friend. You've got your security guard called the amygdala. Now, the brain's primary purpose before thinking is to make sure that this machine it's running stays alive and safe. So here's your little thing. If you don't give it an order, he's over here going, oh, crap, she doesn't have a plan. I need to jump in and take over. Now, the amygdala is never looking at the rainbows and butterflies. It's only going to look at the things that are going to harm you. There's your negative and anxious thinking. So here's my little, and Jackie will appreciate this. You're standing at a train platform in Manhattan. Now, over the loudspeaker, because sometimes it's not clear, but over the loudspeaker clearly says, please let them off the train before you get on the train.
I really wish that they did that.
2 seconds later, a train pulls up, the doors open, and people are jamming onto the train before anybody gets off. So I used to sit at the 59th Street station waiting for the end of the yard to go to Times Square when I used to work down there. And I would just go, are these people stupid? Or they just, I wanted to write a book called, Are You That Stupid or You Just Don't Care? Because I thought there were only two reasons why you would do something so obviously insane like that. Well, I again started studying a little layman of the brain. And what I realized was it wasn't that they were stupid or they didn't care. There was no conscious thought order being given to the conscious part of the brain. You're going to be okay. You're going to get on the train. If you let them off first, you're going to get on quicker. Everything's fine. You're good. If I'm not relaxing him or giving him an order, he's over here going, crap. If you don't get on the train, you're not going to get to work on time. If you get fired, then you can't put food on the table for the family. That's life and death for that person. That is the fight or flight for that person, not, getting fired. So the beauty of not the beauty, but the funny thing about the amygdala, it doesn't know the difference between physical harm and social harm. So that was a big thing for me. So a big part of going back to my daily stuff is being very mindful. I also take Buddhist meditation class every Saturday morning. I'm in my 7th year. A great form of meditation for any age group is just saying to your brain, and you can say it out loud if you live alone, or say it to yourself if there's people around. I'm walking to the bathroom. I'm making a cup of coffee. Just say what you're doing. Just acknowledge, say to your brain, I am washing the dishes right now. I am on a Zoom call with Vernon and Jackie. What that does is it keeps me in the present moment. So going back to this guy that did the big book with me, and he made me write this paragraph down, and then he made me say it. And when I read it out loud, I went, oh my God, this was me my entire life. And again, whether you have addiction or you don't, I know a lot of people that when I say this paragraph to them, they go, oh my God, that's me. In my self-centered way, I think the most important thing is the way I feel. I want people, places, and situations to change so I can feel better. I will go to any lengths to make things become what I want them to become so I can feel better. And there I was trapped, waiting for all these things to change so I could feel better. Therefore, my suffering was of my own making. The good news is I can be healed or helped, and people, places, and things don't have to change for me to feel better. So when I heard that, I just went, that is literally what I try. And there was my mental pain and my emotional pain. I kept trying to change my externals so I could have internal peace. But when you are thinking that those external things are going to give you inner peace and fill that bowl, there's where we all get in trouble. So I never have an issue. I'm not one of those that, oh, money's evil and things are evil. No. What I will say is we live in a society that makes money off of us thinking we need something to make us feel happier or feel included. And so we have what I like to refer to as the hollow chocolate Easter bunny. So, at Easter time, we have two different bunnies. We have a hollow Easter bunny and a solid chocolate Easter bunny. And a lot of us have grown up being trained to just focus on the externals, and none of us did the internal work. So we look good on the outside, but there's nothing inside. We're a hollow Easter bunny. And so the work that I finally realized that I had to do was all internal. And I'm now a solid chocolate Easter bunny. And the last thing I'll say is the reason why affirmations don't work when a lot of people do them consciously during the day is because you forget that there's this subconscious part of us that the door is only open at night, when right before we go to sleep, while we're sleeping, or when we wake up. So even though I kept saying stuff like, I have a strong, healthy, beautiful body. I love fruits and vegetables. I'm a successful singer, songwriter, and voice coach. Even though I was consciously during the day saying it, I didn't realize that those old tapes, what I said to myself, what other people said to me when I was younger, they were still in the subconscious part of me. So I started listening to affirmations right before sleep. Or if I don't listen at night, I wake up in the morning and I listen to it right at the morning. That's when it gets into your subconscious. That's when the doors open. Jason Stevenson, he's got this beautiful Australian accent and beautiful music. Love listening to him. Louise Hay is the OG of affirmations and self-help, and gratitude. Gratitude is an abundance magnet. And how do I practice gratitude? I take a hot shower in the morning. Thank you, God, for hot water, because most people don't have that luxury. I'm drinking clean water. Thank you, God, for clean water. Most people on this earth don't have that luxury. I walk down the streets of New York. There's shit on the streets. And this is a big thing that I think everybody needs to hear too. My life isn't, I'm not like everything's going great every day. But the point is, and that's the spiritual heavy, that's the heavy training, is everybody can be grateful when things are going well. When I'm sobbing in grief because I just lost, someone important in my life, and I'm literally sobbing my eyes out to say to myself, find one thing that you're grateful for right now, and to be able to say, thank you, God, for allowing that soul to be in my life for that time. So my stuff is practical, and I do it throughout the day. And the more you do it, the stronger it gets. So and I'll just say this, sorry, for those of you that are having a hard time and saying, I can't stop thinking the way I think. And yeah, it's hard at first because those spiritual muscles are weak. Those emotionally mature muscles are weak. That's why you have to just keep showing up. Consistency and tenacity.
Keep showing up. That is the thing. I would say the biggest takeaway here is at the end here is gratitude. And yes. I got to say, Ellen, you are a poster child for so many things. One of them is definitely for out of the blue gratitude, because your whole life has been one long test, really, and growth experience. And it seems like the thread that connects it all is that gratitude that has led you to this place in your life.
Well, Vernon and Jackie, I am grateful for you today. And just to spend time with you, you both have beautiful energy and you're doing so good for the world yourselves. And it's like, that's why we go through those hard times. It's not because we're getting punished. It's to make us stronger. It's kind of like we get this light and we pass the torch to the person behind us and help them see that there is a way.
There is a way. That's right there. That's the place. Help them see there is a way. Thank you so much for joining us on Out of the Blue. I'm Vernon West. This is Jackie West. And of course, the inimitable, honored to have her, Ellen O'Brien. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you from Out of the Blue, and I hope to see you next time on Out of the Blue, the podcast. Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Jacqueline West, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.